It was a bright summer morning, the kind where the sun seemed to glow just a little brighter, and everything felt perfect. The wedding was set, and Laura, a young, beautiful woman, was finally walking down the aisle. Her dress sparkled in the light, and her smile was radiant, like she was stepping into a dream. Everyone in the room admired her, and for a moment, even she felt like she was living in a fairy tale. But what no one knew was that behind that perfect smile, there was a storm brewing. Laura was everything people envied: young, beautiful, and wealthy. She had everything she could ever need: a luxury apartment, designer clothes, and a life that others would have given anything to live. But there was one thing she didn't have: something that couldn't be bought with money: love. Or at least, that was what she thought. Enter Chris, a charming young man who seemed to adore her. They met at a charity event, where he appeared sincere and respectful, someone who would genuinely treasure Laura's heart. At first, Laura was taken in by his words, his constant compliments,
and his promises of a future together. He seemed to love her, but as the months passed, something didn't feel right. Chris wasn't like the others in her life. He didn't care about her wealth, at least that's what he said. He cared about her. But Laura wasn't naive. She watched closely, even when he thought she wasn't paying attention. Late nights on his phone, secretive whispers when she asked about his day, and his constant insistence on living in the moment. She started to notice patterns that pointed to something more. Chris had a secret, one he thought Laura was too blind to see. What he didn't realize was that Laura wasn't blind at all. She saw it all. As the wedding day approached, Laura knew everything. She knew about the woman Chris had been seeing behind her back, the one he would take on expensive vacations and buy lavish gifts for, all while telling Laura that she was the only one. Laura wasn't hurt. She wasn't angry. She was simply aware. She knew Chris didn't love her. He loved the lifestyle her wealth provided: the dinners at fancy restaurants, the expensive vacations, the freedom to live like a king. Laura wasn't foolish enough to believe he was in love with her for who she was. She was just a means to an end. So, on the wedding day, as she stood at the altar, with Chris smiling at her like she was his dream come true, Laura decided it was time to end the charade. She took a deep breath, her heart steady. Chris was about to make the biggest mistake of his life. "I have something to say," she spoke, her voice calm but firm. The room fell silent, the guests glancing at each other in confusion. Chris looked at her with a puzzled expression, a hint of nervousness in his eyes. He thought she was just nervous, maybe second-guessing the wedding. But Laura wasn't nervous, she was certain. "You've been living a lie, Chris," she continued. "I know about the other woman. I know about your plans, about the money you thought you could take from me. And today, you're going to see just how wrong you were to think I wouldn't notice." Chris froze, his face turning pale. He looked around, his smile slipping away as he tried to process the words. The truth had finally been revealed, and it hit him harder than anything he had ever expected. "You thought I didn't know?" Laura asked softly, her eyes locking with his. "You thought I wouldn't figure it out? You thought you could take advantage of me without facing the consequences?" The room was still, and for the first time, Chris didn't know what to say. His plan had unraveled in front of an audience he hadn't planned on, an audience that was just as shocked as he was. Laura turned to the crowd, her voice steady. "I'm not marrying a man who doesn't love me. I deserve more than someone who loves my money, not me. So, this wedding is over." She walked away from the altar, the sound of her heels echoing in the silent church, leaving Chris standing there, stunned and exposed. As she left the church, the sun still shining brightly outside, Laura felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She had done the right thing, even if it meant facing the truth no one wanted to acknowledge. Sometimes, the most important thing is not to be blinded by love, but to see things clearly. And in the end, she knew she had saved herself from a life of deception. The truth had a way of coming to light when you least expected it, and today, it came in the most unforgettable way.